Welcome to our podcast of The Dogs That Made Me, and absolutely thrilled to have our first ever guest on here. And what a guest we've got for everybody is Sindhoor Pangel, who is in India at the moment. So it's
Yep.
an evening with you.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for joining us on this. We're so excited to talk through everything that's going on at the moment, but also just going back a little bit and talking about the dogs that actually made you and the dogs that have really meant something to your life and your journey and the journey that you've gone on a little bit as well. So could you perhaps first of all just introduce yourself and whereabouts you are in India at the moment, and then we're going to come on and we're going to talk about this gorgeous dog that's in the photos here.
Right. Thank you so much, Kushla. I am so excited to be here and doing this with Garlin. I have a very special place in my heart for Garlin, as you are all aware. And so, yes, this is really very special to me. And I'm talking about something very important for my country and the dogs of my country today. And so I'm really grateful that you are engaging with me in this manner. And to everybody who's tuning in and listening, I cannot begin to tell you how much this means to me. It's really monumental, really, in terms of the impact that just your attention can have on the lives of so many dogs. And I'll explain all of that in a little bit. I currently live in a little village right outside Bangalore city in India. And the dogs in this picture, this is Nishi. She's not with me anymore. Neither is Chiru, the other dog that I will talk about. But I now have the privilege of sharing my life with three free living dogs. They lived on this property before I bought it. I bought this piece of land about 4 years ago, and they were here before I bought it. So when people ask me, "Do you have dogs?" I don't know how to answer that, because it's not that I have dogs. It seems like I've occupied the land of four dogs, and I'm doing the very best that I can to make sure that I am a positive contribution into their lives. And so I share my life in every sense of the word with four adults of another species. And it's just such an honor and privilege.
I love seeing some of your Facebook posts where actually you're like, they haven't come home or they're a bit late here today. And that whole, I get so emotionally invested in hearing about the story and the lives of the dogs that you, as you say, you share your life with. And it's such a special relationship you've got. I know you had a really special relationship, and I had the joy of meeting Nishi when we visited Asgala in India in 2017. It feels like yesterday. I can't believe it was that long ago.
Almost a
But
decade.
oh, don't. But what a fantastic experience. And it was a joy to work with you and train you as a Galamaya therapist there, but also the experiences that you gave us by meeting the free living dogs that we had the opportunity to do, and to visiting the people that just do so much to help these dogs and cherish them in their lives. It's so amazing. But
Absolutely.
Nishi, how old was Nishi? Did
2017, she must have been 7 at that time.
wow.
Mm.
Yeah, and a really special dog, and not a breed of dog you'd often expect to find either in Bangalore as a boxer.
Well, actually, you do find a lot of these breeds in India, and I mean, of course, you think back and you question a lot of your decisions. Should I have gone ahead and got a dog of this breed in India? Probably not. A brachycephalus dog in a hot country, they really struggle with temperature regulation. So not ideal, I would say, but that's a hard conversation to have, right? Because it was not an ideal choice, but at the same time, Nishi was, oh, She was magic. She was absolute magic.
She was such an amazing character. She was just the most wonderful, wonderful dog. And I feel really honored to have met her. She it feels like meeting a little bit of a star of stage and screen in
Mm.
some ways, is to actually meet her in person. But she actually had a best friend, didn't she?
Chiru, yeah. My younger dog was Chiru. So Nishi and Chiru were just absolutely great together. Um, Nishi, of course, was very special because apart from just this amazing personality that she had also been through a lot. She met with an accident. She lost half her face. She lost an eye. She lost sensation in half her face. Her jaw was broken. She could not eat very well. She had knee issues. She had patellar subluxation. So she had a lot of failed surgeries on her knee. And so when people talk to me about the injuries that their dogs have and the pain that their dogs have, and and they're very emotional about it, which is understandably so. This dog that you love so much, and recognizing and realizing that they're in so much pain can be gutting. But Nishi was a dog who would, and I remember having this conversation with Julia, and when Julia showed me, these are the points of pain that she has, and I started crying, and Julia asked me, "Why are you crying? I mean, aren't you in pain? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Then why are you feeling this way towards her?" And Nishi kind of mirrored that sentiment towards me, and when I would kind of feel overwhelmed around her struggles, Nishi would look at me with this, "What are you crying about?" And I would explain to people, she can't see and she can't open her mouth. And Nishi was like, "Who are you talking about, lady? I'm excellent." You know, she was this dog who had this attitude that said that uh, I'm not less in any way. You don't feel sorry for
Yeah.
me. She was drooling all over the place. She stank to high hell and beyond because of all the issues that she had. But in her mind, she smelled of roses and cut grass, right? She was like, "I smell awesome. I look awesome. Everybody loves me. My life is amazing." And I think there are a lot of life lessons to be learned from that attitude. But there are also lessons to be learned in caregiving where we don't get stuck um, in the sad part of their lives, but
Yeah.
rather look at the whole of their lives, and recognize that pain and suffering are just an a reality of all our lives. And about my life, and pain and suffering is a big part of my life as well.
Yeah.
um, and what little I know of everybody's lives, I've just made peace with the fact that all of us go through this, all of us carry our baggage. And so I think she was just such a great, fun metaphor for almost something that seems kind of spiritual, like a Buddhist ideology, right? Like,
Yeah.
there is suffering, but you have peace through it, and you have joy through it. And so
It's
yeah,
that,
it's just my
yeah.
spiritual guide.
Oh, it's so lovely. And it's the way that she literally just woke up every morning and going, "It's morning. What's the day bring? What are we going to
Yeah,
do?" And
yeah,
without thinking about, oh, well, this might ache a bit or this might be, it's just, every day was a new day. Let's go and
yeah,
explore. And
yeah.
it really is that be more dog, isn't it, in the
Yeah.
life?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I'm trying my best to do that now with my life. Wake up
oh,
every morning and say, "Well, I have a morning, I have a day ahead of me. You know, yes, this
yeah.
hurts and that sucks. And yes, all of that is true. But I still have a choice to smile and be happy about something."
I love that spiritual
Mm,
guide, Nishi.
mm,
What a beautiful. So yeah, and then I mentioned Cheru earlier, and
mm.
oh, she was originally a street dog, was she?
Yes. Yes, she was rescued from the streets, put in a shelter when she was a tiny little puppy. I think she was orphaned. That's the story I've been told. And she was in a shelter for a bit, and in a terrible shelter, and then rescued from that shelter to another shelter. So you can imagine, her
Ah,
story. If she could speak, I think she would have a lot to say. And so she was really a dog who had a terrible beginning to her life, and I think that made a big impact on who she became. Um, And so she had a lot of anxiety issues, and I could relate a lot to her because I have anxiety issues. And so she was really very close to my heart in that sense. Uttam would, my husband, my late husband, would make fun of me, saying that, we would make fun of each other, saying that Nishi was more like Uttam and Chiru was more like me, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. So she carried a lot of, she had a lot of demons that she had to deal with constantly. But having said that, she also had something incredible about her. She was just magical in my mind. She was just so sharp and intelligent. I could see her, the cogs of her brain kind of moving. I would make fun saying that if she had opposable thumbs, she would be going around with a little notebook and a pen and making notes about stuff. She would observe a lot, and she would solve problems in very interesting ways. I remember I would give Nishi and Chiru a puzzle to solve, and in the beginning, Nishi just had a very brute force approach to solving puzzles. Anything you gave her, she would smack it really hard. She was very strong, and whatever you gave her would just fall apart. And she's like, "Puzzle solved. You break it. There's one way to solve it." Chiru had a very different approach, and I think this speaks to her personality. So, in the beginning, she would find the most efficient way to solve it, right? Like make the smallest hole required to get the treats out, approach the treats the fastest, and so on and so forth. But then Chiru realized that there's a better and a smarter way to solve this. So, she would take her puzzle and leave it with Nishi. And she was like,
Oh,
"It's yours." And Nishi would smack it against the wall, break it. Treats would fly all over the place. And Nishi, being partially blind, would now be looking for the one treat that she could find. And Chiru would just quickly grab up everything. And she's like, "See, there are multiple ways to solve this problem."
I
And this
love
is the
that.
smartest way to do it. She's just extremely intelligent. She had
Streetwise.
Yes, very streetwise. She had the ability to be very discerning. I moved, I lost my husband 5 years ago now, and after I lost him, I moved out to the farm here, and here we have snakes and scorpions and all kinds of animals. And she was just so good at knowing what to approach, what not to approach, where to create space, what to move away from, what to alert me about. People would ask me, "Aren't you worried about the snakes and Chiru?" And I would be like, "No, never." I mean, Chiru would be smarter than me in knowing if something was
Wow.
venomous, something is poisonous to consume, something is dangerous to approach. She was such an intense, extreme survivor that I think she knew what to step away from, what to approach with caution. She just embodied a kind of wisdom that dogs have. And I think that kind of opened the world of the wisdom of dogs to me. The idea that they may know things that I don't, they may
Mm.
understand things that I don't. Their sensory perception is very different from ours. What they're able to smell, hear, and see is very different from ours. And so, how they piece that together to ensure their survival exposes a kind of wisdom that modern day humans may find it almost very fascinating, but ancient humans didn't. So ancient humans, I know, uh, observed these animals to, for instance, learn about pharmaceutical properties of plants or
Yeah.
pharmaceutical properties of animals, and that was just observation of animals. So they do have a kind of understanding of the world that's very different from ours. And she opened my eyes up to that, and to having this respect that get off my high horse, valuing my knowledge as the most superior of it all, and
Yeah.
valuing animal understanding and animal knowledge as viewing that as inferior. So she really challenged that idea to say, well, animal understanding, it's not about superior or inferior, it's just different. And being humble enough to acknowledge that there's something useful there can open a whole new world for you.
That is so wonderful to hear, because although they haven't got the ability to type out and write books and write research papers, what you've said there is that innate knowledge that they've got. And, you know, do you think that some of that knowledge of her background came from the ancestry of being perhaps bred as a street dog, that she was a little bit more streetwise, if you like, and had that, you know, is there a way that perhaps they did genetically pass down information of actually what to approach? Or do you think that was very much her personality and down to Chiru?
I'm honestly, I think I'm more and more of the belief that it was a combination of both. First up, street dogs. A lot of people think they're a specific race. They're not. Street dogs is more of like a kind of existence. It's a kind of lifestyle. So street dogs are usually mixed breed dogs. Um, and mixed extensively with European breeds. And so, if you look at the phenotype, you will see that they have. You may see dogs that look like German Shepherds or Dobermans or Labradors, all kinds of dogs. And then there is an indigenous breed, which we don't call as a, we don't say breed, we say it's a land race. It's a naturally developed kind of collective of dogs. And I think somewhere in that genetic history, there is certain things that are encoded, which I don't think are ever lost. So I think epigenetics can kind of turn them on and off. And just as human beings have different abilities with different skills, I think dogs too can turn off something more and turn on something more. So I do believe that regardless of your breeding history, I think you can be high on something and low on something. And so I think that's also at play here. Life experience also plays a big role. I mean, this girl was taken off the streets and put in extreme situations very early on, which had to
Mm,
make her very, very cautious. So the cautious part of her personality, I think, really took front
yeah,
stage. And so that could have triggered a lot of sort of uh, Nishi went into the world with her heart wide open. She believed she was the princess, and the entire world was there to welcome her and celebrate her. And so she never felt the need to be cautious. So even if she
yeah,
had those components in there, she had happily switched all of them off. And she was like, my daddy will take care of me. I don't need to be smart. Whereas Chiru had a very different approach to life. And so I think all of these things kind of contribute to it. So I don't enjoy it when we try to boil down conversations around dogs' abilities just to genetics. For me, that's extremely reductionist. Whether it's human beings or dogs, I think it's undermining the fact that there are so many other things that
mm,
go into making us good or bad at something.
yeah,
And so I think Chiru was a great example of that. Of course, the dogs that I share my life with now, Chaita and her two daughters, they they embody survival at a whole other level. Like it's just mind blowing what I see them do. So I think life experience, if you've had to survive on your own and you have survived for generations on your own, you've learned something and you've learned how to
yeah.
pass it on.
It's fascinating, and it's so wonderful to hear about you know, the way that you describe each of the personalities, because they were so different from
Yeah,
each other as well. And they featured in your book as well, didn't they? So you are
yeah.
published author of, I know, several papers as well. And your book, Dog Knows, has been translated in several languages now, hasn't it?
Yes. So my papers are not published in peer-reviewed journals. It's more of dog magazines and things like that. But the book has indeed been translated to Greek, Spanish, two Spanish versions actually, one for South America and one for Spain, French, Portuguese, and Dutch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, just is, and it's such a fascinating book. And I know you feature Julia in there as well, about
Mhm.
a little bit about the relationship between Garland as well.
Yeah.
Such a fantastic book. If you haven't had the opportunity, everybody, please do pick up and have a read of Dog Nose by Sindhoor Pangel. It's a fabulous read. It really is.
Thank you.
And I know we've got a picture as well of you with some. So are these any of the dogs that you live with now? They're not, are they? Or
No, not really. And this is such a lovely picture. This is a picture where my late husband and I used to go every morning, take the dogs out for a walk, and then stop over to get some breakfast at a local joint. And so these were dogs there. And this embodies the idea of street dogs. So many people have misconceptions about street dogs as them being kind of wary and aggressive and ferocious and all these kind of words used for them. These are dogs that I would meet there, and within minutes of meeting them, this is what I would end up doing. They would just show up, and once they realize, oh, you're petting that one, I you can pet me too. I have fur too, and I'm cute too, and they would just all show up and let me pet them, and I've made it my mission to kind of bust myths about street dogs. And so these kind of pictures are so critical for me because I think a picture can tell a lot. Right?
absolutely. And do you know what? That was our experience of meeting the street dogs that we did in India on our visit, because, you're right, in your mind, you have a perception of whether they're going to be a bit skittish around a human, or, not want to be touched. And that really isn't what we found at all. They've all got very different personalities. So some did want touch, some didn't. But it was more curiosity a lot of the time as well that came
Yeah.
across, which is just fascinating.
Yeah.
And these different guys here.
These are my friend's dogs. The one that you see, who I'm looking at and smiling, that boy has a very interesting story. He is an ex street dog, and it's so funny because I mean, the street dogs' lives are really absolutely fascinating. There are so many facets to it. I love talking about it. So my friend, her husband went out on a walk one morning, and this guy. Saw my friend's husband, and he was like, "Hey, human, you like dogs. And I think I want to hang up my street shoes and become a house dog now. I'm coming with you." And he just followed him home, and he parked himself in there, and he's like, "I'm a home dog now." And that's that.
Wow, that is an incredible story. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And and that was it. He just went home and stayed there basically.
That was it. He didn't give anybody much of a choice. He just, yeah, he was like, I'm done with the street life. And mind you, not all dogs do that. And so that's why this story kind of stands out for me, because my friend, it was really interesting. Just a few weeks before this happened, there was another dog on the street that she was trying to help with a surgical procedure that the dog needed. And so the dog had completed the procedure and needed a space to convalesce. And so she had moved the dog into her house to give the dog some time to convalesce. And the dog would not stay inside the house. And the first opportunity the dog got, she found a way to escape, jump the fence, a very high
Oh,
fence, and just run away. And my friend was so worried about this because she's like, she's got, sutures all over the place, stitches, it's going to come off. But I don't know what to do, Sindhoor, because she will not stay indoors. And that's kind of what we see. Even the dogs that are on my property, I've been trying to see if I can convert them into indoor dogs. And the one day that I tried it, I really regretted it. I woke up in the morning and I found that they had tried to dig their way out of the house under the door, and I have a mud house, so they had made a
oh,
nice big hole in my flooring trying to dig their way out of the front door. And they were so independent that they didn't even bother barking. I thought if they wanted to go out, they would wake
yeah.
me up, they would bark, and I would let them out. No, they were like, we will quietly plan our escape, and this will be done in silence.
We've decided to leave and we're just going to
We've,
go.
yeah, and we're going to find our way out, and we don't ask for help. Thank you very much, especially not from you humans. So, um, So they had made holes all over the place. This wall back here has some mesh, and they had torn all of that up. And they were like, "What? We're trying to escape. And this is how we do it." So that's typically what we see, and that's typical of any free living animal. They don't deal with confinement very well. It's stifling for them. So the idea of confinement and the idea of shelter are two distinctly different ideas
Yeah.
for them. So they're very happy with give me shelter from the elements, but don't turn that into confinement. And if I didn't say this, if I didn't mention that this was a dog, and if I were telling you the story of a human, and a human
Yeah.
said, I'd like shelter, but I do not want to lose my freedom as part of that, I think that's completely understandable. But somehow when it comes to dogs, we don't seem to think that they would probably have a similar opinion. Most animals would. They do not like confinement, even when they come seeking shelter from structures like this. It's not at the cost of confinement. So given that, and given the experience we've all had with that, this dog's story was very unique, in which this dog was like, nah, yeah, I'm good with giving up all of that. Take my freedom, I don't care. I'm a home dog. I want that sofa and
I
I
was
want
going
that cake.
exactly that. Budge over. I've seen the sofa. But I think that what you've just touched on there leads us perfectly into a topic that we're going to discuss as well, which is what's happening at the moment in India with the free living dogs. Because as you were saying then about the choice between seeking shelter, but then actually being confined against your will, is something that's very, very different. And I know it's something you've been campaigning so hard about, and it is heartbreaking. Do you want to give us a bit of a background as to what's happening at the moment with the Supreme
Yeah.
Court?
Sure. So, in order to understand the developments in India, and I'm specifically talking about the developments in India that started last August, where the Supreme Court of India stepped in, based on and said that the dogs in New Delhi needed to be removed and put in shelters. Um, and this was a suo moto action. A suo moto action means that there was no case in court. They just decided to do this almost kind of spontaneously. And that is not really justified, because according to our law, you cannot have suo moto action unless there is a vacuum of law, which does not exist in India. So the existing law in India recognizes these animals as community animals. They're free living dogs. They're not stray animals. They're not feral animals. They are free living dogs that serve a purpose. And so the right way to deal with them according to the existing law is what we call CNVR: capture, neuter, vaccinate, release. And release is a big part of this. And the Supreme Court's actions in August went completely against this and said remove them and put them in shelters, remove all dogs in New Delhi and put them in shelters. And then they realized, that's kind of ridiculous, because we don't have shelters and we have um, a lot of dogs, close to maybe even just under about 1 million dogs in New Delhi alone.
Wow.
And so, where are you going to find shelters for this many dogs? Um, and that so then they rolled back on it. But it's interesting to talk about why this happened, where this is coming from. But they rolled back on it and then went back again later that year, saying, you know what, let's get rid of about 10% of the dogs, but let's do it from across the entire country and let's move them to shelters. Now, 10%, India has an estimated of anywhere between 6 to 10 million dogs, overall. And so 10% of that is still a massive number. So, where exactly are we going to put them? India doesn't have the necessary shelters to put them. So, where are you going to put them is the question that we've been asking the courts, which they have refused to answer. We have been arguing in court. The good thing is that almost all the leading lawyers in the country, the senior most lawyers in the country, all of them argued for the dogs pro bono. And so there were so many petitioners in court that the judges themselves commented that they've never seen this many petitioners in a case. In even cases that have to do with human beings. And the hearing just went on and on and on for several months. And as of now, all the petitioners and all the impleaders have been heard in court, and the judges are apparently deliberating on this, and I don't know where it's going. But the counter arguments that we have to this, and this time we were very proud of this, and I was honored to play a role in providing sort of information and advice to the lawyers who argued in court. So we presented the science of it, and the science of it looks a little like this. First up, uh, the only way, the WHO recommended way of dealing with uh, free living dogs, specifically because they pose a risk of rabies, and India is not a rabies free country. The only way of dealing with it is through CNVR programs. Now, when you capture them, neuter them, vaccinate them, and release them back, we create a stabilized population of vaccinated individuals. And in order to get rid of a disease, you need 70% of the population to be vaccinated, which creates something called as the herd immunity, which stops the spread of that disease.
Yeah.
If you start removing those dogs, you break herd immunity. You break the shield, the buffer that we have created. And every ecosystem has the ability to support a certain amount of life. This is called the holding capacity of the ecosystem. So if you suck out life very quickly, remove them very rapidly, there is new life that moves in to occupy that space, because that ecosystem just has the ability to support that life. And so what is the life that's going to move in? Historically, we have seen that in the short term, other urban scavengers like rats, squirrels, mongooses, other animals like snakes, and so on and so forth, start filling that vacuum that you have created. Now, rats bring in not only rabies, but other
Yeah.
diseases like leptospirosis and plague. And they have in the past in India created epidemics of this kind because of rapid removal of dogs. And in due time, the dog population itself also flows back, because this is not a landlocked country. And the proposal is to remove 10% of the dogs, which means that the other 90% continue to reproduce. And as nature would have it, reproduce faster and more aggressively to come back and occupy the space. But now we're talking about unvaccinated dogs.
Yeah.
So the herd immunity that we achieved with a lot of effort over several years is broken in no time, just like this, within one mating season, because you flooded that space back. And what we have seen repeatedly is if you remove X number of dogs, you get 2X the number of dogs back in that space. And there are documented peer reviewed studies that show that when you do a removal of this kind, rabies free areas can start reporting the existence of rabies because of the
Wow.
vacuum and the rebound effect. And so this is the argument that we have been giving to the government, saying that you're making a big mistake. You are going to increase rabies cases. In the last 20 years, with CNVR having been done, painstakingly been done, we've brought down rabies numbers by more than 75 to 80% in India, maybe more, in fact. And you're going to start reversing all of this and sending all of this back. During the British Raj, we have tried removing dogs for more than 100 years with no success in either reducing rabies, bites, or dog population itself. None of these numbers have reduced by removing them. But you're introducing this archaic idea back. The introduction of CNVR was a gift of India to the world, and the World Health Organization saw the sense in that, saw the numbers, and adopted that and made that the global recommendation for the world. And now to roll back on all of this makes absolutely no sense. And in addition to this, you're talking about mass housing of these animals. First up, we don't have the shelters. Secondly, even if you did, you are creating a hotbed for diseases,
Yeah.
zoonotic diseases. So you are creating biohazard zones within the city all over the country. You can start giving room for novel diseases. Now, the second I say novel diseases, that should start getting our hair raising up on our back, because a novel disease is one where we don't have vaccines developed for it. We don't know how to deal with it. So if it's a zoonotic novel disease that comes from a rodent, we don't have to guess what happens, because we have had a novel zoonotic disease come from a rodent, and that disease was COVID. COVID came from
Yeah.
bats. Bats are rodents. And the problem with COVID was it was a novel disease. It took us a while to figure out how to develop vaccines for it, how to develop treatments for it, what are the treatment protocols, so on and so forth. It takes us some time to arrive there. So, a rapidly developing new disease, a rapidly developing new pathogen is dangerous. Not to forget, India is an antibiotic resistant country. So, human beings in India have a high level of antibiotics, which means that we, within our human population, incubate superbugs, and it's a highly dense country, which means that it is a hotbed for developing diseases. So, put all this together, and it is bad news for India and for the world. Ecosystem destabilization is always bad news, but being done like this, while there is adequate science to show what is the problem, my mind blows. My mind blows.
Oh, it's heartbreaking listening to you, because you can see all of those steps, and you can actually visualize all of this happening at each of these steps. And that's not even taking into account the effect that actually that's going to have on the dogs themselves,
Yeah,
which are used to living as an autonomous in family groups. Because I was quite surprised is the fact the dogs don't go far.
yeah,
They just, they only go a kilometer, 2 kilometers tops, isn't it?
yeah.
They stay in a very small area. They don't move around. They live in family groups. So the idea actually of the psychological effect as well of putting these dogs in that sort of captivity is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's something worse than a death sentence for them. It really is.
Yeah.
It's to put them, and the kind of shelters that they're being put in, the kind of spaces that they're being put in. I mean, India is not a country with a lot of money for its human beings, let alone animals. So the shelters are, without a doubt, extremely overcrowded. They do not have space for each other. They are doing a lot of damage to each other. They are putting dogs with diseases with healthy dogs, which means that they're going to have like massive outbreaks of distemper and diseases like that. To discount all of this, and then these are dogs that, these are not just dogs. I mean, all these arguments that we have been providing has to do with a human anthropocentric perspective. But to me, I have been observing these dogs, and for me, they're not just dogs. They have rich lives of their own. They're
Mm.
sentient beings with rich lives of their own. They have, they, Chaita, for instance, the one on my farm here, she's a mum. She has two daughters, and she loves her daughters, and her daughters love her mum. I remember the first time I showed up here. When I would come here to look at this piece of land, it was just a piece of land at that time, and so I would come here maybe like once a week or once in 10 days. And every time I came here, she would just show up here. She was a dog who was just a bag of skin and bones, um, and so I felt that I had to find a way to get some food into her. So I started asking people around to try and help me to feed her. And as I started doing that slowly, she's like, I got two daughters too, can I bring them
Oh,
too? And so, she brings her two daughters in, and then I started, obviously, I'm going to start feeding them. And then she's like, I got a boyfriend too, can I bring him too?
I love this whole family group that just
No,
literally.
it's not just that. This is full on drama, right? So I'm like, yes, fine, you can bring him over. And by then, I've kind of set up a little shelter here. When I say shelter, I mean shelter for myself. So, I wanted to feed these dogs so badly, and I could not do the back and forth between the city. I was worried constantly about them. So I decided to solve this problem by setting up a little hut here, and I just moved here for them. And then her boyfriend decides, by the way, I got another girlfriend. Can I bring her along too?
This is
I'm
better
like,
than a soap story. This is
I know,
fantastic.
right? And then at 2 a.m., they're having a family argument outside, yelling at each other. And I'm like, that's it, guys. You know what? You guys need to sort this out. Get out of this property. these 2 a.m. fights will not work. We're limiting this to a family of 4. We're sticking with some, you know, human ideas of morality, and I'm going to impose that on you. And I'm only supporting a family of 4. So this, and it's not just, and I think it's important to kind of call out that their lives, their entanglements are not just amongst themselves, it's also with the humans around. Many of us
Yeah.
are invested in their lives, and they are invested in our lives. We know from a scientific perspective that when we connect with them, we generate oxytocin in our body and all those lovely hormones. So we are attaching with them like a mother and a child would. And to now start taking these animals away is no different from
Mm.
taking away a child from a mother. We've bonded with these animals, we have given them our heart and soul, and to start taking them away, I think it needs to be contested, at least from an ethical perspective. And the
Yeah.
impact on human beings is to see the impact, the heartbreak that is experienced by the people who are providing for these animals, caring for them, and eh, uh, and showing up for them every single day. It's a big part of our lives,
Yeah.
and so that needs to be addressed too. And there is the other aspect of it, which is that ever since the courts started taking this direction, it has enabled uh, many people to start getting very violent towards people who feed the dogs, people who care for these dogs, who are mostly women. So the violence towards caregiving women has skyrocketed. And so the question that we need to ask and answer is, uh, what is it that we are teaching our next generation? We are normalizing violence towards women because they are providing care. We are normalizing attacks on, we're in a war against compassion, and that's what we're teaching children. Dogs are being culled in Morocco. They're being killed in Morocco, and the UN, the wing of the UN that has to do with child welfare, right? I forget the acronym for it.
Yeah.
Actually, has come out with a statement to say that children have a universal right not to have to witness violence, extreme violence, and them being put in a situation where they're witnessing this kind of violence towards animals and violence towards uh, providers of compassion. What is the next generation we're creating? Now that is
Mm.
the scary part of this narrative, right? Is that it's not just what's being done to the dogs, but what is it that we're shaping the next generation to be, and what is it that we're shaping the world to be?
It's putting into the way you've actually vocalized that. It's not even something that I thought about. And it's not even an aspect that had come to light, really. Is we were lucky enough to meet some amazing caregivers for the dogs when we visited you in India. And these people had very little, but every day they were cooking food and every day they were taking it to the dogs. And they themselves had very little, money, very little resources. And I can imagine the impact, the emotional impact and the mental impact it would have on these people that their family has gone. Because
Yeah.
and they knew these dogs. They were spayed, they were neutered. We were meeting dogs that had accidents. They'd been taken to the vets, they'd been operated on, they'd survived, they'd been cared for. All of those scenarios, and suddenly you're right. I mean, it is. It's like being bereaved.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just heartbreaking. So,
Yeah.
what can people actually do? What can we all do to get behind you and to help you and to you know get the word out there further into perhaps media or whatever that this is happening? What can people actually do?
Yeah. So this is a question. I've been doing a lot of podcasts on this, and this is a question people ask me, and I realize that my answer changes every single time. And I think that's kind of part of um, the point is that the situation is evolving constantly,
Yes.
and so our need changes constantly. So depending on when this airs or when somebody actually listens to this, our need is likely to be different. I will try and articulate what our need is right now, but that may change depending on when somebody is listening to this. So the first thing I would ask for is follow the story. don't look away. Don't think of it as something that's happening in a different part of the world, and so it doesn't bother me. Be invested, follow the story, see where it is at any given point of time, look it up. I mean, we have all kinds of internet searches today. So look it up, look at the newspaper articles, our website and our social media. We also publish content, try to publish the latest content on it. But we also kind of share stories from other people who are publishing content on it. So follow all those guys so that you know what's going on and you're aware of it. I think your attention is is like 90% of what we need from anybody at this point. Is I want your attention. So pay attention to it. Don't skim over the story. Don't just express momentary outrage and then be done with it. It's
Yeah.
not a fluff piece. It's not something that discuss over a cocktail and say, hey, did you know what's happening in India? Oh, terrible, isn't it? And then forget about it. That's not it.
I think you've
Stay
really
invested.
clearly articulated why we need to be listening, because you've
Yeah,
clearly explained the ecological effect and
yeah,
the viral effect. And it's
yeah.
something that we've got to be paying attention to,
Yeah,
because
you got to be paying attention to it. You got to be paying attention to the nuance of the discussion. You got to be paying attention to who are the people who are advocating in this direction or that, and pay attention to what is it that they're saying. The situation is changing every single day, and so what is it that's going on? So anybody who's listened to this entire podcast right up to this point, I would say that this matters so much to me more than anything else, right? That you listen to all the details, you actually paid attention and understood. And for that, I would just like express a lot of gratitude. That is quite critical. uh, in addition to that, I think every opportunity that you get to talk about it, whoever it is that you can talk about it to, have those discussions, have that back and forth, feel free to contact us and to ask us to engage if required. So things like this, platforming our conversation, or even just talking to us and say, hey, Sindhoor, I had this conversation with somebody. They brought up this point. I could not find an argument. Can you tell me what's going on, right? Just develop a rich awareness of this and engage with us in that sense. And I think that matters. Now, if the people you're engaging with are from the media, that would be really precious. So if you know anybody from the media who take this up, if you visit our website, and I will provide a link that maybe you can put down at the bottom of this video. We are documenting a lot of this on our website as well. So send them the link, send them the PDFs that we have, tell them why this is an important story for them to cover. Because when somebody from the media in the UK gets a mail from somebody from India, they're likely to ignore it. But when they get a mail from somebody from the UK, they're more likely to pay attention to it. So writing to media personnel within your country, writing to any politicians within your country or celebrities within your country who might tweet about it, or give us any visibility. Writing to the Indian High Commission in your country can also make a big difference. So if there is any way as an organization to kind of band together and say, as an organization, we're going to issue a formal letter, and I'll be happy to sort of give you the necessary contact information if there's an ability to do any of that. Those are also going to be very useful. Even contacting like large welfare organizations, large shelters within your country and saying, issue a statement against this. This is, they're not going to give us the audience, but sitting them down and saying, hey, listen, this is the reason why we need to be concerned about this. So issue a statement against this. I think if you can do any of that conversation, even if they don't issue it, the fact that you had a conversation moves the needle a little bit. So even if it's a dead end conversation, have that conversation. I think that would be very useful.
Fantastic. And the website name, just in case anyone's listening in, we will definitely put it on this video.
www.barks.com, barcs.com. So barks.com, if you go in there, the second panel there says, leads you straight to this whole conversation. We have tried to document newspaper articles, scientific literature, so on and so forth, around this topic.
Sindhoor, you've explained everything so clearly and why it's so important. So And it really has opened my eyes to certain other aspects of it as well. I understood, a lot about the ecological side and the viral side, but certainly the other points that you've highlighted about, the emotional connection, but the violence and everything. It's really, I now understand more and more why this is so important. And thank you so much for your time. And I really hope that everybody else out there as well can get behind you, and let's get behind the streeties in India.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you so much for your attention. Like I said, I think people don't realize just the fact that somebody paid attention, listened to an hour, and understood the nuance of this conversation, I think makes a huge difference. So, from the bottom of my heart, I have so much gratitude for this. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sindhoor. We will speak to you soon, I'm sure, on another topic. But thank you so much for your time.
Yes,
Thank you.
my pleasure. Thank you.